Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I just want to get a nod here that we have everybody that's in the waiting room in the Zoom meeting already. Brilliant, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. I know there's still a couple of people that is dribbling in. We are recording this session, so you can always come back and view the recording afterwards as well. We're really glad to welcome you here today on our annual NOAA Climate and Global Change Postdoctoral Fellowship webinar. You would see if you go to the chat, and we'll show it a little bit later as well, you'll see that there is a link to a Slido where you can ask questions. We're going to ask everybody to please type in their questions in Slido, and we will respond to them in the Slido at the end of the presentation. And the reason for that really is just so that everybody that watch afterwards can follow the questions as well. So with that, I'm going to start the presentation. So I want to thank all of you for being here. We are super excited to launch our 2025 cohort for CNGC. I am Cindy Brehier, and I am the CPAESS Deputy Director. This program lives under my direct control. I cannot do this program without Kate, who is our program coordinator. And we also have Monica Kopaz, our NOAA program manager, on the call today to help us run this webinar as well answer questions later on. Another critical component of the CNGC program is our steering committee. And today we are very fortunate to have two of our steering committee members here as well to answer questions. Dr. Alison Wing, which is an associate professor at Florida State University, and she's also the chair of our committee, is here today, as well as Dr. Ian Eisman, who is with the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. So welcome very much, and you will see them later as questions pop up, and they will address some of the questions that you might have. I know this is in the chat, but I do want to share this. If you just want to scan this or go to slido.com with that specific number, you can start submitting questions, and please submit them throughout the presentation. And I see there's a number of people on already. That is fantastic. So to jump right in, we want to start off with who can apply for this position as a two-year NOAA Climate and Global Change Fellow. So we want applicants that is going to move to a new university. So as you finish up your PhD, we are really looking for people that would go to a new university and start a new adventure. And the reason for that really is to for our new fellows to build new networks beyond their current PhD institute. We had a couple of cases where we have exceptions, but it is not often that we do exceptions for that specific rule. You have to have a PhD, and we are looking for very early career fellows, so within 3 years of your PhD. You can also apply if you do not have a PhD yet, but will be finishing your PhD by November next year, because we want all of our fellows to start by no later than the first Monday of December next year. Applicants that are not completed will also not be reviewed. So please make sure that your application is totally complete when you submit it. If you have any problems with those, reach out to us and we can help you, but we really need complete packages before we move them on to the steering committee. Your host has to be in the United States, but you do not have to be a US citizen or currently studying in the US. If you are outside the US right now, we would request that you relocate to the United States. We also have a couple of hosts that's not eligible. And the reason for this is that we do not want one university to have multiple CNGC fellows at the same time. So any university that currently has a year one fellow is not eligible. You would also see that we have here both universities and departments. So we do allow different departments from the same university to have fellows, but not the same department in a university. The only exception to that rule is if two departments in a university already have fellows, we will not allow a third one. Our steering committee members may also not host fellows, and I have them on the slide here. I know there's a long list, but we are recording this so that you can go back, and it's also available from our website. This is our entire steering committee, and they are not allowed to host fellows while they are serving as a steering committee member. Your application materials, remember I said you need to have all of this material before you apply, and we really want you to upload it as a single PDF document. We know that you're going to create multiple documents, but it makes it very hard for us to put them together. So we ask that you please put all of your documents together as one PDF document before you upload them. If you have troubles putting them into one document, we do have resources for you online where you that will show you how to create a single document. We want 4 pieces of information from you. We want a personal statement. And in this personal statement, we are specifically looking for your interest in this position. We want to know what leadership you bring to this position, as well as what the link of your research and future research is to NOAA's strategic directions. We want your curriculum vitae, and that includes publications. We also acknowledge that a large number of you might be in a position that you are drafting papers or have just submitted them. We ask that you please indicate what stage your papers are in. So has they just been drafted? Has it been submitted? Is it in the review process? Or are your paper accepted, so that we can tell in which stage these papers are. Then we would like your description of what you want to do as a fellow. We are looking for 5 pages of what your proposed project during this fellowship would be. Again, you are going to have a lot of references to back up what you are going to do, and your references do not have to be part of this. So it's 5 pages of what you want to do. And if you have references that you refer to other people's work, that can be on pages 6 and onwards. And then we need host material. You can also have 2 hosts. We do have a couple of our fellows that have 2 hosts. We would just need information from both hosts, and there's a lot of information online of how to do this if you have 2 hosts. Once you apply, once you have created that one document that you will upload with the information on the previous website, you're going to go to our Workday portal and submit your application. Once you get there, we're going to ask you a number of questions as well. So look at the questions that we need and keep them handy as you fill in your Workday portal application. So we would need information about your PhD. We would need information about your proposal title. We would like to know which areas your proposal fits in. For instance, are you working on dynamics? Are you working on cloud physics? Are you working on oceanography? So we have a whole list there of topics that we would like for you to pick to give us an idea of which areas you are proposing to work in. We need information about your proposed host and their contact information. And then we're going to request names for 2 professional references. we will send out a question to them, a questionnaire. So do let them know that a questionnaire is coming their way. We are not looking for a reference letter, but a form with some very specific questions that they need to fill in. So it's really worthwhile to let them know this is coming their way. If you would like your PhD advisor to be a reference, that is perfectly fine. And if you do not want that, that is also fine. So we do not require your PhD advisor to be a reference for you. So once we receive the packet, how are we going to determine who gets the fellowships? One of our big objectives is to connect this with NOAA's programs and goals. So we would make sure that your proposal has a relevant fit with our program and that it fits with NOAA's goals for this specific program. The quality of the proposal counts a lot. So we are looking to make sure that it's a high quality proposal. It's a novel idea, and this is work that you are proposing and not somebody else. We are looking at the quality of the academic record. We are looking at recommendation responses, as well as your leadership and service to the community. So why would you want this fellowship apart to promote your own science and do the research that you are interested in? Joining us as a NOAA CNGC fellow really has a lot of benefits to you as well. So our benefits package is pretty comprehensive. So we do allow relocation assistance. We provide fellows with $8,000 a year for travel and publication so that you can expand your networks. We provide you with a stipend to help you set up a home office for the days that you're working from home rather than being at the university itself. We have health, dental, and vision plans, life insurance plans. We have a retirement plan that is very flexible, and a large number of leave options. The leave options include personal time off, sick leave, family leave, federal holidays, parental leave, as well as dependent care assistance. And you can read more about all of these on our website. So that's all I have for you today. Again, I am Cindy Brehier and the Deputy Director for the Center. And I am joined here by our program coordinator, Kate Rod, as well as our NOAA sponsor, Monica CPAESS. And we would love to answer your questions, so please keep them coming. I see there's a number in the chat already, and we will now take those questions. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can bring up the questions and start addressing the questions. A very, very good question. Will the results of the election affect the funding at all? Unfortunately, we have seen in the past that funding are affected by elections and funding from the government. As a matter of fact, we typically fund 8 to 10 postdocs a year, and we funded 4 last year because of budget cuts. So it does sometimes. The one thing I can say here is that CPAESS and NOAA is fighting very hard for this program to ensure that we put money aside for this, and that we hope that this becomes resolved in the future. But there is nothing that we can guarantee here in terms of the funding. I'm also going to ask Monica if she wants to contribute to this question.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. It's actually a complicated situation with the funding, and there's no straight line between elections and CNGC program, that's for sure. In fact, the budget cuts that Cindy mentioned actually are just proposed ones, and they're under the current administration. So, it's a very complicated picture, but as Cindy said, we are very committed to making sure that at least 8, if not 10 fellows will be selected next year. So we're doing all we can. And I think some of those decisions will be even happening before administration changes. And there's many layers between us and the budget. So we're trying.
Thanks, Monica. Monica, I'm going to pass the next one over to you as well. So the question is about the areas of focus and if biology projects does fit.
That's a good question. I think we were just discussing that in our email exchange, and I think I passed that question on to the science the steering committee, because even though the program has supported ecosystem research in the past, I can't tell how far into the biology realm we have ventured before. So I don't know if Allison has anything more to say.
Yeah, I mean, so I can say from the steering committee, we evaluate how relevant it is to the climate and global change program. And so that's the thing that you have to kind of evaluate for yourself in your research, and specify in your application. And so the scope is laid out on the website. We're looking for science that furthers our understanding of the Earth system, climate impacts, and climate adaptation. And so I think it could include biology topics like the ones you listed, but it would have to be within that lens of kind of climate impacts and interactions. It's difficult to kind of draw a hard line in the sand because we do want to encourage interdisciplinary projects, but being connected to climate and global change is the key. And on the topic of relevance, I would also say that make sure to spell that out very, very clearly in your proposal. As Cindy said in her presentation, it is one of the aspects of the application that we evaluate on. And so, you shouldn't rely on us kind of digging through your proposal to try to assess where the relevance is. It should be like a section in your proposal that lays it out. And again, emphasizing the connection to the climate and global change program, not just any of NOAA's priorities, but specifically the ones related to climate and global change.
Thank you very much for that. A good question on maternity leave and the two-body problem, reasons to consider compelling circumstances for not changing institutes. That's an interesting one that I haven't seen as a request yet. So okay, is everybody comfortable to proceed? Somebody gives me a heads up that we have more or less the right number from before it broke down. Brilliant, thank you. So we have not had this specific question about maternity leave yet. So my initial reaction to that would be, let us bring this one to us and we will consider it. This is a question that we are struggling with a lot in the post-COVID world, and we have a lot of discussions around that. I also want to open it up to our steering committee members to hear if they have any comments on that one. Hearing no specific comments on that one, I will move on. And I would just, whoever asked the question, I think Claire, I think it would be great if you reach out and let us have this discussion offline if this is something very specific to you.
I'll just weigh in quickly. I think that's a really good question, and it's one that I think the steering committee would be looking, well, Allison's here now too, so maybe she can weigh in, but I think the steering committee would be looking to NOAA for some guidance on it. It's a very real and hard situation with the couple of situation trying to move universities. It is not uncommon. So it would probably apply to a lot of applicants, and I'm curious what guidance our committee would get on that.
Sorry, what was the question we were talking about? I was kicked out of the Zoom for a while.
We all were.
Okay.
Is a couple situation a two-body problem a compelling reason not to switch institutions?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think, at least in the applications I reviewed, having been on the committee in 2 years, there's only been a handful that asked to stay at the same institution. And the reasons went deeper than a two-body problem, I would say. So I think you would have to like convince us why there's no other option for you to do a postdoc someplace else, basically, I think. Because part of the goal of this program is to help you, build your national network. And so it's not that, staying at the same institution can't be good for you personally or good for your career, but that's not necessarily the goal of this program. But again, it's kind of like, you have to convince us, I guess, basically. But my feeling is that it would be a long conversation the steering committee would have about kind of what actually rose to that level of being a compelling reason.
Allison, the person who asked wrote in the chat and wondered who they should reach out to discuss specifics. Is it you?
I mean, I don't really know that I could provide any more specific guidance than what I've already said, which I know is frustrating.
So they should just put it in the cover letter?
I actually think I would highly recommend send an email to Kate and let's discuss this. I'm perfectly happy to have this discussion once before you even put it in your cover letter and put it in your cover letter. So I think both of those, it's not either or. I would really say, let's discuss this. Let's see what the specifics, more in-depth questions are. And then once we've discussed this and you decide to move forward, put it in the cover letter as well. Good, and thanks for posting the Slido link again. Good. Approximately how many applications do you receive a year? Very good question. It varies. Some years it's a little bit lower than others. I think we definitely had a little bit of a dip post-COVID, and I think that was just because people were taking maybe a little bit longer to finish their PhDs or had other obligations that they needed to fulfill. The last couple of years, we have seen an uptick in the number of applications, and I would say, I'm going to give you a broad number, but typically I would say anywhere between 80 and about 120 applicants was normal, with above 100 being more for the last couple of years than further back. Good. Caroline's question of what is the funding rate for the fellowship? So I'm assuming you're talking about what is the annual salary for the fellowship. The annual salary is at the moment is roughly $80,000 a year for the first year. In the second year, we do have a little bit of an increase for our fellows as they move into the second year, but it's roughly there. And our fellowship has also been keeping up, maybe even more with inflation than what other UCAR salaries has. So it's definitely kept up a little bit better than UCAR salaries, which is about the only one that I have to compare with.
Caroline clarified in the chat that she meant like the acceptance rate, basically, which I think, 100-ish applications per year, 8 to 10 is the target. You can do that math.
Correct. So it is highly competitive. I'm not going to say this is not a competitive fellowship, but that's also why you apply. So it is in that 5%, sometimes a little bit higher, but probably in that 5% rate. Brilliant. Craig is asking, our host and co-host required to register with UCAR? No, they are not. We have the database for fellows that is looking for somebody, and that it would help as a way to connect host that's interested in hosting a fellow with a fellow looking for a host. But if you know of somebody already that you would like to host you as a fellow, and this person is not in our database, that is not a problem at all. The next question, what kind of leadership experience are you hoping to see in the application? I'm going to pass that over to Allison, Ian, and Monica. Either or all of you.
So for leadership experience, I mean, we look at this, based on, what kind of activities you've been involved in, as you describe in your CV, and as in your personal statement. We'll also assess what your reference letters say about your leadership. And, as with anything, there's not a formula, right? But we're trying to fund future leaders in the field here. And so we want to see both that you have the potential to be a scientific leader as well as a leader in the community. And so taking on some sort of leadership in your grad school career can be an indication of that. It could be things like, being involved in department committees, or chairing a session or at a conference, or more informal leadership in terms of how you support other students in your program. So there's a wide variety of things that that you can do. Reviewing papers, right? That counts, as leadership and service, participating in science communication. So kind of think broadly, and emphasize in your personal statement the moments in which sort of you've kind of tried to play a role in the community and take an initiative. I don't know if maybe Ian wants to add about some of the things he looks for in leadership.
I'd say about the same, and it's a kind of an open-ended concept of leadership, maybe especially in this context. But I feel the same way as what Allison just said.
I don't know if I should add something too, but yeah, just whatever Allison said. But anything that shows us that the science that will be done and has been done is not just in a corner without connection to the greater community, science community. Cindy, you're muted.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Monica. An eligibility requirement is that we hold a PhD in climate and global change science. Is there a list of what PhDs are considered in this topic? Not really. I am going to pass it on to the rest of the committee to answer as well from their perspective. But I think from my perspective, it really is a case that we do not want you to diverge too far from what you're doing. If you were doing something in astrophysics and now want to become a climate and global change scientist, that transition is too big. So at least have a background that you can build on from my perspective, but we really do not have a list of PhDs. Monica, I'm going to start with you this time and then pass it on to the steering committee for comments as well.
Thank you, Cindy. This is, I think, where I'm still kind of transitioning from
Okay.
how the program was, because I'm actually surprised to hear that it's a requirement to have a PhD in that, because I think the key is to do science in climate and global change. But if you are a biologist who wants to now study more ecosystems, I think I've seen at least one example of that in the past, where technically the PhD was not in climate science, but it was definitely, the fellowship was focused on climate and global change science. But I might be wrong now.
Oh, I mean, I think you're right, Monica. What it says on the website is applicants must have a PhD degree in an area related to climate change research. And so I interpret that as meaning your PhD research has been related to climate or global change in some way. I don't think we especially care precisely what the degree says. That's highly dependent on all sorts of random factors at your university. Is your degree atmospheric science, ocean science, earth system science? It might be physics, right? Some climate science programs sit in a physics degree or applied math or something. So I think it's not about like what your diploma says, it's about what your scientific background is, and do you have the requisite knowledge and experience to carry out a postdoctoral research program in climate and global change science.
To Monica's point, I'm interested in what our guidance is on this. As Monica brings up, beyond just the question of whether your PhD in climate science says math or physics or earth science, if you come from a field where you haven't done any climate science in your PhD, but that now you're going to use that background to do climate science, that's, I think, what Monica was speaking to. That's happened at times in the past in this program. Are we not doing that anymore?
I can add to that. I think everybody's comments were correct. We're not specifically asking for a climate background. We're really asking for something that has a strong enough background that you can build on and work in the climate space. So I think the wording online, we can look at the wording and ensure that the wording is correct online, but the wording online really is calling for something that you can build on. And that's why I'm saying, from my perspective, it doesn't really have to be that close. And specifically in this area, we had a lot of fellows that built onto something that was slightly different. You just need to have the ability to build into the climate space and show us with compelling evidence that you can do this. So that really is not about your PhD as much as what you're going to do in the future. Will there be any forms of interview after the submission? A very good question, because we have discussed this a number of times, and it is something that I think the steering committee has discussed as a potential in the future. We are not doing it right now. So definitely for 2025, there's not going to be interviews of the people that we down select and that is on our short list for this fellowship. Demi asked if we have an eligible university as a primary host, can somebody at NCAR be a secondary host? Absolutely. Somebody at NCAR, somebody at NOAA, or somebody at any of the federal labs can also be the primary host. So it does, your primary host, or even if you have a single host, does not have to be at a university. It is common that most of our fellows are at universities, but we've had a couple of fellows that was not at universities, and actually NCAR has hosted a number of fellows over the years.
And NOAA.
And NOAA, absolutely. Are social science focused projects considered if it is also incorporate climate prediction, but focus more on the building climate resilience stakeholder engagement? Short answer is yes. Monica, I'm passing it over to you for a longer answer.
I don't know if there's a longer answer actually. As much as we want to say yes, if we get into the history of this fellowship, then there was a parallel fellowship for more social science oriented projects. So that way, this one was more physical science focused fellowship. So again, I think it's another one of those you need to convince us, because it is really a physical science focused fellowship. We don't actually even have too much of an expertise on the steering committee on that, but for that, I'd rather Allison addresses that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as Monica said, traditionally, this has been a more physical science focused fellowship, but I think the topics you state are certainly within the scope, and we will evaluate them as we do all the proposals. On the website, it says, for example, coupled human system processes. Human system processes are within the focus area of this fellowship, and that includes climate adaptation science, pathways for low carbon, sustainable, equitable future society, et cetera. So it is within the scope, and we do have some expertise on the more human side of the climate problem on the committee, but yeah, it is weighted more towards physical science for sure.
Thank you, Monica and Allison. Confirm that the submission deadline is January the 10th, 2025. Absolutely, yes, that is the deadline. So right before AMS. Since my current lab is the only one in the US that has the research material that I intend to study, would I still need to change institutions? That is probably a closer to the typical requests that we do get, to not change institutions. I'm going to say the same as before. I think reach out to us, let's have that conversation, and be very clear about this in your cover letter so that we are aware of the limitations for what you want to study, and that it really only is at one university. So make sure that you communicate this to us as clearly as you possibly can. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out to have this conversation so that we are aware of the situation. Does research on utilizing seawater to combat climate change fit into your program? Allison, Ian, have you seen those ones? It is back to a little bit more biology.
More, I guess, climate change mitigation, I guess. Yeah, I mean, as I just said before, this fellowship includes science, that's furthering our understanding of physical Earth system processes, climate impacts, and climate adaptation science. And so if you can relate your research to those areas and, its relevance to NOAA's focus within those areas, then it's within the scope of the program.
Thanks. When do you aim to notify successful candidates? We are aiming for early April 2025 to have everybody notified. This year it was a little bit later, but I think expect this in the April timeframe. We've also had a lot of candidates start asking in March, hey, I'm on the short list. Am I going to get this? We unfortunately do not have the ability to let you know at that time frame. So I know a lot of people need to know this because they might have multiple options going forward. But we have very little ability to make comments before the April timeframe. And we really hope to have it the first week of April. This year was probably closer to the second week of April, but in that timeframe. So to build onto that one, are there a short list, and will we be informed if you're on the short list or not? No. We do not communicate with anybody at that point as we're going through with the shortlist and let people know if they're on the shortlist or not. We only make notifications of success or not in the April timeframe. Do we need to provide a research budget justification? Do you assume that our research can be conducted within the small research budget provided? So a couple of things on that one, a very good question, a couple of things on that one. No, we do not ask for a budget from you. This position is a fellowship with a fixed salary of, as I said before, around $80,000 a year plus benefits. So we are assuming that you're going to utilize your time while being paid by UCAR and NOAA to conduct your research. The small budget that I'm thinking you are referring to of $8,000 really is for travel, to go to conferences, to network, as well as to publish papers. And I hope I did answer that question. If that was not fully answered, please drop something in the chat and we can follow up on that. Should we be aligning our proposed work with existing projects at NOAA? Monica.
Short and long answer is no.
Thank you very much. Correct. So probably it doesn't have to be a project that's already run by NOAA, but it's something that NOAA would be interested in the climate and global space. The current last question.
Cindy, sorry, just to, sorry to interrupt. I think the issue here is the existing project. I think this fellowship is really looking at latest and greatest and new and far-reaching. So the fact that somebody's thinking of an existing project, that's actually an issue.
Correct.
Cindy, I just want to quickly alert you to the chat with an important, I think, follow-up question.
Okay, so if there are additional research costs for chemistry, that is a really good question, and thanks for the follow-up, and thanks, Ian, for alerting me to that. We do see occasionally that there are samples that our fellows need to pay for that costs money. During COVID, we had allowed people to utilize their travel and research grant to help pay for this. We no longer want people to do that. And this is where we really want UCAR and NOAA is carrying the cost of this program. And this is where we really ask the host to be part of the process and provide additional funding to our fellows to get these samples analyzed. So I think that would be a really good question to discuss with your host, is like, these samples is going to be needed and their commitment to help you pay for that, because we do not have additional money to pay for analyzing samples. And we really want to use the $8,000 a year for networking and publications and not for paying for your samples.
I mean, one of the things that we do evaluate is how good a fit your host institution is for your proposed research. And so if you need certain expertise or certain research equipment or resources to carry out your research, then you need to describe how your proposed host institution provides those necessary needs.
Thanks for the addition.
And that's one of the things they also have to describe in their materials, right? Your host has to say how they will support you and what they can provide you.
Correct. And we also have a lot of hosts that would prefer their fellows to travel more than what the $8,000 stipend allows, and therefore also provide additional money for travel and publications. So that is where the combination and the partnership between NOAA, UCAR, and the universities really shine, is that entire package that is then provided to the fellow. A question of, I presume we need to propose the name of the host and institute in the application. Yes, we do want that. And the second question is there a list of proposed hosts for 2025? We do not have a specific list for every year, but we do have online a list of universities or specific professors at universities that has indicated somewhere in the past that they would like to host fellows. So you can easily go through that list and see if there is somebody that you could be matched with. And it's a pretty comprehensive list. There's a couple of hundred universities that and professors that is on our list that you could look at. Ian.
If I might add, though, just to clarify, that list is not exhaustive. You certainly can list a host that is not on that list, right?
Absolutely. What are the guidance for how many potential hosts we can reach out to? A very good question that I don't think I've ever seen before. I do not think there's a limit to how many you can reach out to. You can reach out to as many as you want and then pick the one that fits best to you. But our professors in the room, comments, suggestions?
No, nobody's going to know how many people you reached out to. I think you can reach out to as many people as you want.
But yeah, I mean, you should also be prepared for people you reach out to say no for a large number of reasons that may have nothing to do with you or the quality of your research. You know, sometimes people, you know, just don't have space or time, you know, or whatever. Sometimes we do also have multiple applications, you know, multiple applicants who both want to work with the same host. That happens every year. We evaluate each application independently, but obviously at the end of the day, only one of those could be selected. So, you know, I guess you wouldn't necessarily know that when you're talking to professors, but that is another thing to keep in mind. And I would say also, just as a general rule, when you're emailing professors, please don't take it personally if people don't reply to you. We get an unimaginable number of emails. And so if they don't reply, it's not personal. We probably just didn't see it or got lost. You know, you're welcome to email again.
Thanks for that background. Are we required to relocate to the host university, or can we work remote hybrid? At this point in time, we are requiring people to relocate physically to their new host university. And if you have a reason why you can't reach out to us, let's have the conversation one-on-one and make it very clear in your cover letter why you might not want to relocate. So this is something that for us is, we want people to relocate. We want people to connect with new people. So it is something that we are going to require of you. If we have collaborated with our host in some capacity in the past, would this prohibit us from applying with that host? Not at all. If they're at a different university and you have worked with them in the past, we have seen connections like that. And I would also open it up to people on the steering committee to comment on this one. But that for me would not just be a straightforward, no, you cannot. Alison, Ian, do you have some comments on that one?
I feel like we see that a bit. Is that right, Allison? And I don't think that counts against applicants if they've collaborated with their prospective host, but it wasn't their PhD advisor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not a problem per se, but I mean, you do want to, make clear like why this is that your project is, a novel, independent research project. It shouldn't be, another way for your host to get funding to do something they've been already doing or something like that. So yeah, it's okay if you collaborated with them in some capacity, but your project still needs to be a new project.
And for whatever it's worth, I think it's super common that people like have a little bit of collaboration with someone during their PhD and get to know that person and then go off and do the postdoc with them. Both the postdocs I'm working with right now are that story.
Thanks for that. I agree. I think it's a very natural thing because as you go through a PhD, the direction that you want to go in, you might already have a connection. Is moving within the UC system acceptable? I'm not sure if we've seen something like this. I'm not immediately going to say, no, you cannot do this, but I would like to hear some comments around the room. So if you move from one UC system to another UC system.
That's fine. If you move from like, UCLA to UC Irvine, those are completely separate institutions from the perspective, of this fellowship. That's fine. I mean, like, as we said, technically you can also even move from, UC Irvine Department of Chemistry to UC Irvine, Department of Physics or whatever. It just can't, not that, backtrack that comment. You have to move from one university to the other, but there can be multiple fellows at the same institution within different departments, at least maximum of 2, I believe Cindy said before, but yeah, different, the title of the university is different. It's a different institution.
And then a question about the eligibility of Scripps Institute. I had a quick look at the list that we had that I had up earlier on, and Kate, if you can confirm for me, but I'm pretty sure Scripps is no longer on the list they were on last year.
Scripps is clear. We are not currently hosting a first-year fellow at Scripps in conjunction with Scripps host.
I think the question is actually if people from Scripps can apply.
Oh, that was the context. People from Scripps should.
People from anywhere can apply.
Yeah, exactly. It's
I'm not sure if we're misunderstanding the question.
Yeah, the eligibility factor aligns with who you, your host institution. So that's where that line can be drawn of who is hosting a first-year fellow. But if you're at Scripps, you're welcome to apply.
As long as you move away from Scripps.
As long as you move away from Scripps. Yes, thank you for the qualifier.
So I hope we addressed both sides of that. If you want to be hosted by Scripps, you can. If you're currently at Scripps, you can, as long as it is somewhere else. Is it okay for my proposed project to build on my current work? Yes, given, and I think this is where I would like our steering committee to add to it, but given that this is not just a continuation of your current work, but build on your work and be different.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Most research naturally builds on prior research, right? Whether it's your own or someone else's. But we are looking, for you to, to do, a new project that is really novel and innovative, and doing groundbreaking science. And so, yeah, it can't be the same stuff as your PhD. But certainly can be related to it.
Next question is switching institutes necessary for first-year postdocs who recently switched after completing their PhD? This is also a question that we actually get relatively often. This is when we say you've already moved and that is fine to continue with the institute you are now. It is the move from PhD to postdoc that is important for us. I think the one thing here that is important is that we are favoring first postdocs. So if you currently have a postdoc, we're really favoring people that is applying for a first postdoc and not for a second or third postdoc here. But you don't have to move at this point. That was an amazing amount of really, really good projects and questions that people, oh. Is it acceptable to change departments and stay at the same institute? Alison, Ian, have you seen that one before?
I think no, I think that's not allowed unless there's a compelling reason.
That's also my impression.
Good. The web indicate first fellowships and not postdocs. Am I misunderstanding? I think I am I'm not sure I understand this question, Craig. So we are looking for people that are looking for their first fellowship, i.e. their first postdoc. So
Yeah,
fellowship and postdoc is interchangeable. Alison, you see something else here?
In this context, yes, but so there's lots of different ways you can have a postdoc. You know, sometimes a professor has a grant and they hire you as a postdoc on that specific grant. So you would be a postdoctoral researcher, a postdoctoral scientist, a postdoctoral scholar, whatever title the university is, but that's not a fellowship. But that does still count as a postdoc. So if you have a postdoc position now, any sort of postdoc, you are eligible to apply, but this fellowship favors people who have not yet held a postdoctoral position.
Allison, did you see there's a place on the website where this might need to be clarified that says postdoc, i.e. fellowship?
I'll take a look at that because yeah, it's most postdocs do not have fellowships.
Right.
Correct. So we will clarify
you're
that.
right. It's in the website under how postdocs apply. It says preference is given to new graduates who are seeking their first fellowship, but I think we mean seeking their first postdoctoral position. So we should clarify that. That's on
we will clarify that.
Homepage of the website. Thank you for pointing out that confusion.
If this project would be to continue a temporary postdoc position less than 6 months, would that count as applying for a second postdoc? That's quite a nuance. Alison, Ian?
I mean, I guess maybe technically no. It's not a second postdoc probably. I don't know. My personal opinion I would probably still value that not quite the same as like a brand new postdoc position, but also not the same as a second postdoc. It's somewhere weirdly in between. So it's perfectly allowed, but probably we still would favor someone that this was truly the start of their postdoc. And I think the reason for this is that it kind of, again, comes from the fact that we're wanting you to like, you know, do really new and exciting research and expand and build your network. And so if you already have a postdoc position somewhere else, even if it's, you know, only been a short time period, that means that someone already had funding, you know, for you to work with them on a project related to your interests. And so, you know, it's not like, why then do you need this new fellowship? I mean, of course, yes, you always want more funding. And maybe their funding runs out or whatever, but the idea is that, you know, we're trying to give opportunities to people coming out of their PhD to go work, under the mentorship of someone, but as an independent, researcher. That's kind of really what a fellow is. Like the funding is attached to you personally, not, your institution or your advisor. But I guess, this is, one of many, many things that are considered in our evaluation, right? The first and foremost really is the quality of your proposal. And then, everything about, your personal qualifications, academics, everything else that was described before. And these are just, additional tidbits that, enter the calculation, but it's not like a checkbox or something like that. I don't know, Ian, do you have any, how would you interpret this situation in when you're evaluating applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized it really well, and these last two questions are closely related to each other. That it's not a checkbox, right? That this committee has a lively discussion about each application, and yeah, for the reasons that Allison said, there's a preference for first-time postdocs, and if you've already moved somewhere and you've been there like a little while and you're trying to have the fellowship to stay there, that's certainly something that we'd have a lively discussion about, and in the context of like the spirit of why we're preferencing first-time postdocs. If you look at the history of this program, there are plenty of examples where people got this fellowship after having an initial postdoc, even for 2 years or 3 years in their first postdoc. And I think each case really is considered separately and not with a checkbox, but with a lively discussion.
Thanks for addressing that. And I think we've addressed the current question that's up there as well, in terms of, yes, it's not a checkbox. We're not going to kick you out just because you had it. But the steering committee will look at all the factors when they pick the fellows. How about how many fellows are we accepting each year? We're trying to keep it between 8 and 10. It has not been consistently between 8 and 10 each year, but we are trying to have that sweet spot of a minimum of 8 a year. But I cannot guarantee what postdocs we're going to have, but we work very hard every year with NOAA as well. And all our NOAA partners are working extremely hard to try and get 8 a year. It seems like we have run out of questions. There was a bunch of really fantastic questions. Thanks for this. Thanks for joining us. We're really committed to help you. So if you have additional questions afterwards, please reach out to us. The best email to use is Kate's email address. Send Kate an email. You'll find her email address all over the website, and we can answer questions individually that you have. And Kate just put it in the chat.
And I'll just
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all for joining, and good luck on your applications. We'll look forward to reading them.
Thank you.
Thank you to Monica and Allison, Ian, Cindy, and the whole panel and the support crew for putting this all together and making this such a great exchange.
Thank you, Cindy and Kate.